Welcome in chat.
Hi.
Hello.
You guys don't even do your names anymore.
No.
Speak French. How about that?
Je suis Jacques.
Je suis Benjamin.
He said the sweet shack.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some candies later.
Yep.
The Sweet Shack.
What does that mean?
I am Jake. Jacques.
Oh, Jacques.
I don't know what Jacques is exactly. It's probably Jack.
Yeah. That. So tell us about your French. You've been learning French. Why?
Because I wanted to. There's really no other reason.
So you basically wanted to escape from America and move to France.
Yes, exactly.
And then
Ryan was like, you know what's gonna happen? You're just gonna start liking. You're gonna learn French, and you're gonna go and visit there, and you're just gonna stay there. And I was like, yeah.
Dude, I was almost Spanish.
Yeah.
I had such a good joke, but I'm not gonna say it here. Ben. Beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
How are you doing since our injury podcast? Shout out to Stu McGill for those who are not familiar.
Yeah, everybody should definitely check him out. I've posted about it, but if you didn't see the post, you should check out The Back Mechanic, which is his easily digestible book on like pain triggers and back injuries and treatment of lower back injuries. And then he has like 3 other books, and he's definitely worth checking out. He has helped me get on a path that seemingly is to improvement with my condition. And the benefit is it's not just for people who are injured. Like it's stuff that everybody, especially who's lifting weights, should know and be aware of. I wish I would have known about it before I had my back injury. So it's great information, whether you're injured or not.
So we didn't get paid for that, by the way. He's just really good. I should add that. Today, it kind of a different topic today. It's kind of your idea, and Jake and I just have some input here and there. But what's been on your mind for today's chit chat?
It was to obviously a little bit scattered, but I think to keep it as concise as possible, it was coach-ability, number one, and the second element of that is kind of education and within fitness and how to best make an impact when you're trying to educate, and to where people are actually not just informed sheep, where it's more like a someone who can contribute back more. And
we kind of got this idea because we're actually you won't know the days, but by the time you hear this, a week and a half, we're doing a camp at the Arnold. We call it more of a forum style. So the structure of it is going to be kind of based off what Ben said, and it's not so much that we want you to go there. It'd be nice if you did, but it's more so along the lines of the word coachability itself. The way we're structuring it is that we're starting with a kind of fundamental biomechanical approach, and then starting from, I guess, really from A to Z in the most cheesy way to say it. So when you say the word coachability, I'm assuming that you're starting with some type of fundamental. Like when I heard it, I thought like I thought about Steph Curry. Like, why is he probably such a great coachable player? Is because he's got his fundamentals down pat, so that if he wanted to shoot a half court shot, he knows the fundamentals on how to do it. So
I think I'm just going to use another basketball reference, just because I think obviously Steph Curry is the current kind of I guess NBA, one of the top NBA players, but obviously Jordan, everybody knows Jordan. And the one thing, if you know his backstory, is like that whole, like when he got cut from the team and everything, like he worked on everything, and he was just very much a proponent of just nailing the fundamentals. And it's very logical. The benefit of that is if you nail the fundamentals, then you have a strong base to build on. So in making it specific to the point of the discussion today, is I think we're currently in a time where people really like something sounding fancy and sounding high level and highbrow, and then they like to propagate it because it kind of by association makes them feel proud of like I don't know, something that maybe a higher academic is speaking about, but if you don't actually know it and you're talking about it, the actual message underlying it gets lost.
Right.
And it's just people using like pathway terms or something.
What was that buzzword we kept saying earlier? One was nervous system, obviously.
Central fatigue.
Central fatigue is like a word. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's funny because if you think about it, I think central fatigue is a evolution of overtraining.
Right.
Because the first thing when you really get into fitness that you hear in every magazine and everything that you're supposed to fear is like overtraining. And it's weird. I don't really hear about that much at all anymore, unless I'm just
as far as overtraining.
Well, you just popular word.
It's just not like the huge fear mongering thing anymore.
Yeah, overtraining, overreaching. Yeah, I don't think we fear monger it as much, but I also don't think anybody ever really gets that close to it.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother discussion, which, you know, could be for another time. But yeah, I do think probably powerlifting has had some kind of impact on that.
With seeing what limits you can truly push.
Like what is really
understanding that frequency. Is a huge part of making progress.
All right, so I guess while we're on the topic of coachability and fundamentals, I guess it sounds great to hear, but I guess practically, if we were to kind of give advice to people on how to have a great foundation or a great base to go on and to finesse some of these higher level things you see, I guess what are some of the basics that even like we're doing at our camp with some biomechanic things and cues maybe, and you know, whatever you guys think.
I think, of course, this is a personal bias, but I think everybody should try to expose themselves to at least a baseline understanding of simple physics, because that will allow you to understand. I got out of line that felt heavier than than it did relative to how I started. So if you truly want to own your knowledge, it is important to understand the basic physics of it, because really biomechanics is just the physics of exercise or the physics of movement or human movement. So I think that's the first important part.
So let's say physics, and I'm trying to think as somebody totally unfamiliar with physics.
Sure.
I don't know, what if I just pick a random book from the bookshelf and read it, and I open the thermodynamics and I'm like, well, Ben said I gotta know physics, like what,
or
area?
Where would you start or something?
Where would you even,
I mean, I'd probably go to more like Newtonian physics.
Well, here's I guess like if you're asking for a resource for people to start,
not necessarily a resource, like kind of what Jake was saying, like Newtonian physics, like just
or what would you look for?
Yeah, like what I'm trying to think of someone totally, because we're going off of
like
we all know
basic principles, like
just
where would they go to learn it? You mean, or understand it better?
Not necessarily where, but like
so
what?
Yeah, you can't understand bar path.
Okay.
You can't truly understand bar path if you don't understand the first law of motion. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you can argue kind of all three if you don't understand all three.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, the For Dummies books are really helpful because they're very easily digested. So anyway, I guess not to get too far off track, what I think the big focus is getting everybody first to that level of understanding when you're kind of presenting to a group, and not assumedly saying, okay, everybody knows the basics, let's now propel ourselves to this is what happens in this lift at this one isolated point. You kind of have to understand the picture holistically before you can zoom in and see the specific details. So you asked, like, what would we be addressing, and one of them will be catching everybody up to speed with the specific basic fundamental physics of the lifts, just things to know, like what is work, what is torque, just basic things, what's a free body diagram, and then from there taking everybody together and saying this is how So what does it mean when you get out of line and it feels heavier? Why is that? It's because of torque. It's because of your center of mass deviating. And it'll just be through visual illustrations and everybody getting up and doing something that is out of line and feeling it. So it's again, trying to help people own their knowledge of not just listen to me because I'm presenting it and you think I know what I'm talking about, feel it yourself.
So one of we have a de novo in our de novo client network. So Jake is Chad Dolan's back. And Ty, you have Ty. How do you say his last name?
Carzoli.
So the three of them, they're phenomenal with their form checks that they do for clients in there. I guess Jake, every time I see a form check, I always see you mention something about physics, like every single time. Like you don't say, "Hey, I don't know, break your hips more." Just
you're out of line.
Yeah, you don't say like just do that just cause I say so. Like you're proofing almost is the physics reason.
Well, I like to say why I'm telling them to do something, but well, I'm glad that seems useful, because sometimes I wonder, like, do they care why? Like,
well, they should have the information even if they don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So it is definitely good to know.
I think that kind of along those lines is you said, like, you wonder if it's even being helpful. I think to someone who maybe doesn't understand it, it's the dangling of the carrot. If they really want to, again, understand how to move better, right, it might be, I don't know what that word is, let me go follow that path that, you know, that person has given me to some degree. But really, it is the easiest way to communicate. It's the same idea as like learning anatomy terms versus saying, right, my back hurts here.
Yeah.
But
like you said, getting everybody on the same page, it just helps with that communication process.
Exactly. It becomes much more specific. I think the other thing too, though, is since a lot of people who either attend seminars or listen to something like this, is they're probably doing some type of coaching themselves.
Right.
And understanding it helps you explain why to somebody. And I think while everybody likes to just make progress, again, I talk about kind of owning the information and owning your knowledge. Part of that is being able to correctly explain why it's happening. Because if you're actually going to impact somebody else's life, rather than kind of blindly hurt them, I think knowing why, or if this went wrong, why it went wrong, it's self-correction too.
Well, I think while we're still on this fundamental step of talking about physics, I think it was you. I forgot who told me this quote. I think maybe a teacher said it to you, or somebody said it. Says everyone's a master of physics. Like you just can't explain what you're doing. And
I'm happy you brought that up, because that thought shot into my head, and it's totally true. I just think people get almost intimidated by like something that just sounds foreign to them. It's like a different language.
You know what torque is. You've had it your whole life.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you drive a car, you know what torque is.
You know what
like
a moment arm is. Like you've done these things. You've used them your whole life.
Exactly.
Moving your limbs at all.
Exactly. Like when you tilt forward, you feel the difference. It's just you can't explain. I hope
someone who's never moved comes to work. No, I've never moved.
I could picture somebody literally like on a stretcher, totally like locked in, pinned in, and to move them, you just have to keep flipping them like a square wheel.
Oh my God. I've just been a first class lover my whole life. I don't know. Please sign up if you're listening. It's sorry, good. I lost this.
Good mental picture.
I know. Like a mummy or something. Just shows up to Columbus, Ohio.
Oh man.
All right. Sorry, where were we?
That's okay. I think we were just talking about building.
The physics. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, those foundations, I think for me, how they make sense, comes with another buzzword. Ironically, is efficiency and biomechanics. Like you hear the word efficiency a lot, and I don't think I understood efficiency till I started understanding physics more, because you can't fight the weight. I was struggling with that even with this current block that I'm in now. Like, I was trying to own the weight and fight it and get it to move how I want. Now, if I have 600 pounds on my back, it's going to drop it's going to drop straight. That's what it's going to do, with or without. So only thing I can do is manipulate my body and how I'm structured and how my limb lengths are set up to move that thing down in a straight line as efficient as I can, respecting point A to B in a straight line, most efficient way possible. So understanding physics fundamentally, I think that's sort of a good segue into probably your next kind of topic on coachability, which itself is probably would be some type of biomechanical movement or cues, or I'm guessing that.
Yeah,
what it would be.
I think it's when you start to separate to that point. Now it becomes, I think it's a dual responsibility, and one of them is of the client. One of them is actually of the coach. I think for the client, it's very much a psychological thing. It's actually on both sides. It's very much a psychological thing. But, and I know we kind of alluded to this before, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the fundamental idea of why did you seek out someone else's guidance? Obviously, because you're looking to either make results faster or you were frustrated and not making them fast yourself. Therefore, inherently, it would be strange to go and pay that person and then say, no, this is how I've been doing it. I'm just going to keep doing it this way.
Which happens.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yes,
it's kind of mind-blowing, and it's very strange. So something that I've learned myself throughout really the past, I don't know, over a decade of lifting weights, is that you do need to be open to new concepts and ideas. Even with right now, like the stuff from Dr. McGill is like, I really never valued very much the importance of direct kind of core work. And yes, it's more, I don't want to say more helpful, but I'm struggling to find a better way to describe it for someone who's long, because obviously the longer, your torso is, the more torque and force you're going to experience, kind of getting you out of line and stuff like that. But it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, everything is rooted, the connecting point between your whole body or transfer of force is at the core. So if it's not strong, you're bleeding force. So I kind of lost my train of thought. I don't remember what we were talking about. Coachability. Yeah. So I think that an ongoing thing with education is, and self or otherwise, is learning what you don't know. And then it's okay to, say, well, again, this goes back to point number one, building a foundation, is if you build a stronger foundation, you can start to weed out stuff that you just logically know is not going to be relevant.
And the process isn't necessarily linear either.
It's never linear.
It's not like, well, I got to stop lifting and learn about physics for the next
it's not.
year.
It's actually, it's like elliptical. Like you literally go up in somewhat of a linear fashion, like almost like a non-linear fashion, and then you do a loop back to,
and you realize, I don't know shit.
It's like progress is a circle.
Exactly. It's like curly Q. But I guess getting back on track is on the other end of it. I think for the coach or consultant is being able to see where that person is and kind of developing the best point of attack, I guess. How to get through to them education wise. And obviously there's a lot of limiting things too, though, because when you're via a computer,
especially, that's so. I think one of the biggest frustrations, at least for me, and I've been a personal trainer before, is that I want to be able to touch people and move, or at least demonstrate something.
Yep.
So obviously through a computer, you can't really do that. So I think with kind of like online consulting becoming so popular these days, unfortunately, there kind of is a little bit of a limit to how much I'm going to be able to help you over the internet. Especially, I can't be there for every training session. I can't always be watching you. So I think to those people, as you said, who are looking to get better and who are looking for help, and you're talking about like responsibilities or of the client or the one who, the coachee, I guess you could say. I think that is one of them, and you kind of have to be very honest with your current skill level and say,
that's huge.
Am I confident enough that, or is my skill high enough in this movement to where somebody can kind of tell me something if they're I guess a quote unquote good coach over the internet, and I can kind of use that and manipulate that, because I just don't really think you can complete, like, if I see somebody and it's like a complete mess and it's online, it's like I can only fix you so many,
right.
like, you can only record video and get back to me so frequently before it's like,
I even like earlier today we were training, and then these past 2 weeks we've all kind of been on the same training time on the weekend at least. Ben has been helping me out with some things in like the beginning of my squat, and then like I was looking at your rack out today, and it's like we all have this like, what the fuck are you doing with each other? Like when we're fucking up on our lifts, it's like, dude, you're, like, what are you doing? Like but I was thinking about kind of like what you're saying and about online coaching, and one thing that I think people don't realize, and these are even with my clients personally too, my clients who are the best clients are also the best self-coaching clients,
right?
Like they know how to coach themselves best in addition to the information that I'm giving them. So like if anyone thinks that online coaching itself, and I know this is kind of a tangent, is like a magical formula, like nothing is better than in person, than having a coach. No. That's if that were the case, the NFL would have online coaches. But the coaches are still there. You know what I mean? Like and so you're right, like I agree 100%. Like I can only do so much. So again, how do you improve your ability to be coached? And self-coachability is to just improve on your fundamentals. You know, like Ben told me something maybe a week and a half ago, and I got it. I got it within a week and a half, and I was in the shower practicing. Like I just kept I didn't do anything. I just literally practiced it all day. So it's not like waiting for the next week's check-in and another check-in. So like, I don't know. I personally, like I said, I can't drive the fundamentals down enough. It's like back to basketball or football, because I can say, what is the issue? What have I amassed in my data set of basics that I know? And then when it happens, you're like, oh, I'm an idiot. It's simple. You know, it's so
also simple. Kind of have to have like a certain almost like training age to know, like have that body awareness to just know, like, okay, what is he like when somebody says this, like, or do this, like move in such a way, like, how does that feel like in my head when I do that with my body? Like some people literally just don't know that. You like my mom, like she can't move. It's like what?
I was watching. There's this documentary, and I keep talking about it. What's it called, Anna? The History of Maths. And there's this one example they were talking about the story of maths. I'm sorry, and they were talking about circles, and it made me think, like, you can kind of compare your athletic level to a circle to some degree. So let's say a total beginner like your mom, she would look probably something like a hexagon. like a few 8 sides. But the less sides that polygon has, the more perfect it seems to look like a perfect circle. But a circle has infinite sides, and you can really never stop the number.
Like anti-aliasing.
Yes, and so like we're looking at these guys like Mike T and all these guys who lift. Like Mike T still has sides that he can break in half and become a better circle. Yep. And I think that sometimes like it's just so small. I've never said this in my life. I think sometimes it's just so small that like the little, it's like a million. What do you call that circle with the million tangent lines going off of it? It's something in It's like a trajectory something. But that. And so if you're a beginner, don't get so hard on yourself. Like, think of yourself like a hexagon, maybe. Like, okay, these. I have 8 sides to me. I'm not that complex, but over time, I'll cut some of these sides in half, and I'll get a little smoother. And none of us are Big Ray.
I think there's 3 points to that
triangle
that I immediately thought of as you were saying it. One of them being, there does need to be a certain level of humility. It doesn't matter what level really you're at. Everybody can still make improvements. And that needs to be recognized, because let's be honest, there's guys at the highest level who are still winning worlds who can actually be more efficient and display more of their strength. And I'm not saying that I'm the person to show them that, or really anybody here is. It's just you can clearly see things of inefficiency when you, I guess, develop an eye for it. The second thing is I've noticed that now there's this development of form paranoia with people where they immediately think something is wrong just because they're so used to having to fix something that they're looking for a problem.
I love those check-ins when you and Ty are like, looks good. Like, looks good.
It looks good.
It looks good. Yeah.
So the other thing is that, like, if you've been doing it for like years at this point and you haven't like exploded, like, it's not like I'm gonna tell you this huge magical like revolutionary thing and you need to completely redo your squat. Like,
it's refinement.
It's gonna be a couple little, like Ryan said, kind of smoothing out the circle. Some little refinements here, they're more likely, or you've just lately gotten to some weird movement pattern,
like I did.
Yeah, that
you start getting
and
dumb.
You just need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
Circle
square. No, just go ahead.
I think that perfectly transitions to the third point was, and we've kind of already semi touched on it, which is movement is life. And the one thing I had to really realize and recognize that most people aren't conscious of is how you move throughout the day. Oftentimes that really does bleed into how you lift weights. For example, like part of the progression of the back issues I've had were because I tend to have a hunched posture, and that clearly came through in how I used to deadlift. Right. So obviously I was not helping the case by now adding resistance to poor movement. And I think what has already helped me in a short couple weeks, and again, it sounds like we're plugging this book, but part of the fundamental core of the book is movement-based stuff and how you move, correcting how you move through life. Really everything impacts everything, and if you understand and learn how to move better, you will understand and pick up on how to lift better and see how things, because really what we're talking about with biomechanics and being efficient is moving the weight with the addition of the least through almost like the
doing the least work possible, basically.
Yeah, exactly, like the path of least resistance.
Yep.
And that applies to getting up out of bed in the morning, or like getting up out of a chair. Like, obviously if you totally just throw yourself forward getting up out of a chair and your torso's bent way over and you only load your toes, that's going to add up.
You'll be a mess.
I was talking to Ryan, I think before we got on, about something like, oh, you only got like so many of those like movements left, doing that wrong.
Yes.
But like that's kind of true.
Yeah, it's a finite. Yes, it's a finite number.
Everything has a lifespan. Like there's a reason that, let's just use Ronnie. There's a reason that Ronnie now is getting hip replacement and he didn't at 25 or 30.
Yeah.
Because it's accrued. And the thing that you kind of have to consider is every time you move wrong in the day, you're now accruing or pulling away of the lifespan of that joint capsule, or we'll just keep it general. Now, when you do it with resistance at a more accelerated rate, you're bleeding the lifespan of that joint capsule. So at what point, other than while you're sleeping and laying down and totally unloading, your joints, are you...
Unless you're sleeping weird.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something too, is like that now becomes more addition to the stress. So I think as I say it, I'm realizing like from 4 years ago, like stuff that has come into the picture for me was stuff I never even considered before. So it is an ongoing learning process.
That's like life specificity almost. Like, like you guys know, like I never walk upstairs. Like I run every time. I always run upstairs. And I think once you become, we were talking about skill levels, once you leave the beginner stage, that movement, like you said, movement is life, especially if you're advanced. Like once you become an intermediate, at least, that movement is part of your life. Like, like there's like for people who squat frequently, I'm sure all of you do this. When you pick something up, you not act like you're deadlifting or you act like you're squatting. Like you no longer
that's how it should be.
Right. And you get into, and it's kind of funny, but you get into that motor pattern so well that's all you know. And that's how I had with running. I've ran so many stairs in my life, I walk up here anymore. So I think as you get more advanced and as you get more specific into your sport, and honestly as it kind of takes over a larger chunk of your life, like, well, how am I sitting? Like I just recently recently got a standing desk, and it's like there's no way I can just sit all day and then try to just go do some singles later. You know what I mean?
You're gonna be all messed up.
Yeah, it's like a lifelong specificity in your movement. So especially like you said, from your core, like, man, we sound like those core guys. We've never been those people.
But and
it's killing me.
Yeah, but it's funny because that highlights another important point, is like it can be a painful realization, realizing that you've made multiple mistakes. Or
you've just been ignorant to something.
But the worst problem, or the worst way to learn, is to learn through chronic pain. Like I can say that confidently. So the point of us even bringing it up and highlighting it and talking about seminars and caring so much about wanting to do them and help people move better in person too, is that I don't want anybody to be me. It's terrible.
Right.
I'm not saying I have the worst, card of anything, but it sucks when you're used to moving and doing everything normally in life, pain-free,
your whole life,
and then pain becomes part of every movement you do. Like, it sucks. And no one gets into powerlifting to have the endpoint of saying, I want to be a crippled 40-year-old with some clanging metals off my neck. And
the signs, I think, are early, and this kind of ties into what Kelly Starrett is popular for, his kind of self-care or self-mobility, or I'm sorry, I don't know specifically exactly what he does, but I've been noticing now that I've been kind of more hip to my core strength and increasing that lately with some of the Stu McGill stuff that Ben is... What's his name? Stu McGill?
Stu McGill, yeah.
Dr. Stu McGill has discovered, or that we discovered, is that I now, when I sit in a hunch position, I'm like, my back hurts. I used to let that go.
Yep.
I used to just be like...
And then later in the day, you're like, why does my back hurt?
Yeah. And so it's like, again, it's like you said, it's these accrued, like... little, like, oh, my neck is starting, maybe I'll just get some ART and I'll just get some ART, and I had to try to say that normal as possible, and I'll just get it rubbed out. But
Floating out.
But but you remember when like I had my trapezoid and I was like, oh, let me just band-aid it with some ART.
Yep.
Like I think I told you guys what it was. I just wasn't pulling enough deadlifts with my lower lats. I was just being lazy.
Yep.
Like I was just using my upper back too much, and it was my.
That's such a good point. I have to say something on this because there is definitely a mobility movement, and I think it's pushing some people towards hypermobility.
Yeah.
And the problem is, the reason I think part of the idea of it propagates and has gotten popular because it acutely gives you pain relief.
Yeah.
When the reality might be, it's not that you're immobile. Obviously, you're not fucking coming to a meet in a goddamn wheelchair.
That guy does need to come to the camp.
There's something that you're doing wrong.
Exactly. You're missing the point, and you're just paying a lot of people to make you hyper flexible.
Yeah.
I think yeah, well, for all the flack he gets, I think one of the things that
he has good stuff, don't get me wrong,
that he says is actually like at the outset of that book is that no matter how much you use any of this stuff, if you don't correct the problem or whatever it is you're doing on a daily basis, whatever pain you've got is going to come right back.
Yep.
But it ties back to the early point we said of Coach-a-bility, is that it seems easier to say a fancy mobility WOD buzzword and a fancy voodoo band
because it's popular.
K-tape and all these like fucking tape. Dude, I found out there were K-tape certified, like you can get a certification.
Do you want to spend that time, like another hour in the gym doing that, or do you want to just move right to begin with?
Yep. And it's the loop. So you may be at the top of your knowledge set right now that you know, and it's time to loop back down and go to the bottom and learn some.
Or like it's like the Madden bars. Like find the Madden bar you're emptiest in and try to fill that one up a little bit.
Like you're like the kicker. 98,
0% awareness. He's just kicking into the fucking air.
But he can kick. Squib kick.
I think something else to highlight too, and this is just through working with a large amount of people as well, and it comes down to coachability and ironically awareness, is that you don't need to kill yourself. I think there's this concept of this was written for me. I need to do or die, get it done.
LS talking to you.
And while that's admirable, and part of lifting is like, I gotta go crush this because it feels it's a good visceral way to get out a lot of things. The thing is it shouldn't overpower logic. Like if something's hurting and it's moving, and you're moving wrong and the pain keeps getting worse, there's a problem that needs to be addressed there.
Right.
And to some of this degree, I'm not relieving responsibility from the coach, but I am saying that since they're not there all the time and they can't watch it all the time, you need to be aware of it and report it, and not just say I need to grind through and kind of just finish it out. Or sometimes the best decision and actually the win for the day is leaving, rather than killing yourself and trying to get through something that is just chronic reinforcement of bad everything.
It's I do believe in never quitting, but I do believe in rearrange.
You win the war.
Yeah, I do believe in rearrange.
You gotta know when to take that.
Rearrange a fight. Like you gotta know when to strike.
Yeah.
Like if something, if my SI is acting up on a Friday, and I know my I guess my, I don't know, whatever people do, microcycle or something, like starts Monday, I'll take it Saturday night or something like that. Like I'll give myself like the full longest time that I can have. But people are so convicted, like, no, coach said Friday, like I have to do Friday. Like there's this video, and I think I've talked about it. It's Marshawn Lynch when he did play in NFL. And I think you guys have seen it. It's when his coach, the offensive coach, was coming up to him on the sideline, and he was telling him, like, he said, you gotta watch this, and he just showed him this clipboard, and Marshawn's just sitting, and he was like, I got it, and he's just talking, and Marshawn's like, I'll read it, and the coach tries again. He's like, Coach, I'll read it, and he's like, okay, you'll read it, like, he's so self-coachable, and sometimes you need some of that. Like sometimes you don't need the playbook of the day.
You need the balance, though.
Yes, you just need to say, I'm just gonna
Yep.
I'm just gonna throw this guy. That wasn't in the playbook.
Right.
Like that was not in the
Exactly.
playbook for Marchand. Like he just it's a combination of both. And I think the rigid institutional follow the syllabus model doesn't work in sports.
Right.
Like no one told Michael Jordan to stick his tongue out to the left. He just,
yeah, exactly.
He just I don't know. It feels right. It feels good. So yeah, we've started kind of at the basal level of physics, talking about understanding things like basic like torque, center of mass, what work is. Anything I'm missing on that?
I think just for interest of not being able to visually talk about it, I think it's probably best to just leave there.
Yeah.
And move on.
Then we kind of blended into saying how really it was. I kind of liked how it was titled, like movement is life, sort of. In some way, like you to be a good athlete, to be a strong athlete, you can't say I do this many hours a day. I'm accountant or whatever you do, and then I'm athlete, weekend warrior.
Yep.
Like if you want to get to an elite level, and Jake and I talk about this all the time, and we talk about it all the time too as well, Ben, it's like, man, I'm telling you, like, I'm a huge fan of Brett Gibbs. Like, I don't know if Brett Gibbs even knows who I am, but like, I'm sure I do a little more with my time in the day than he has. Like, I'm sure he has to train a lot. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have what he has, but like, I don't want to train that long. Like, I don't want to do the work he does. Put it short. So, for him and a lot of the top lifters, their movement is life. Like, they're always doing some type of recovery stuff. They're always thinking about their food. They're always thinking about something. So, the correlation between becoming more coachable and having more of this information, being ready to receive and learn around the clock, be ready to do it more really around the clock with not only your movements but your mind as well too. So
yeah, I think the only it's not an addition, it's just an alternative I don't know, a qualifier to that is I think if you think about how important the endpoint goal is to you, and you say, I'm going to train really hard and give my all in that session, you have to also realize what you're truly saying there. And if you really want to be the best, I think, or, get better at the fastest rate, you do need to kind of understand that really means a 24-hour commitment rather than just your 3-hour session. And
which is very familiar, I think, to a lot of bodybuilders, but maybe a little bit new in powerlifting.
Carry was kind of easy for bodybuilders. Like, I can't lie. Like, it's like getting the 183 is 2.5 is a lot easier than what did you compete at 170 highs, 170 lows
on stage. Yeah, and I was like 160.
Oh,
162.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Wow, 160 lows. Wow.
Yeah.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 205 is easy. It's just like, I gotta lose 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, the torture.
Man, but the exchange for lifting heavy it's almost equivalent. I won't even lie. Like the way I feel.
Well, the training is
just much more brutal.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I kind of had what I think is kind of a good last one, kind of like in getting those things like you were saying, like around the clock. I think this last one is the hardest one, and you see it in a lot of professional athletes, but it's like know thyself. Like, so many times I hear people say, well, it works for me or something like that. Like, I only say that, and you guys hear me say ridiculous shit like, I'm gonna squat 650 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
but then you do it and it's not ridiculous anymore.
But because I said that in the name of all fundamentals. Like, I know my volume's higher. I've compared it. Like, I'm looking at where I'm at. And
right.
And I'm saying that with all variables equal to what I equal to last time. You know what I mean? So, I guess what are your thoughts on getting your fundamentals down, and then the things that are like, I know me type of thing. Like how can one get comfortable with those things? Like ballerina squats.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Plie.
One, some of that's going to come with experience, and maybe not chronic pain, but if something hurts, and like if doing something the right way, quote unquote, is hurting your body, then for you, maybe that's not the right way.
You have to get through the injury too to know.
Right. Also, so in that way, everybody's squat or whatever, while there are general principles you want to adhere to, isn't going to look exactly the same. I've tried like squatting like Ryan, basically, like wider stance, more hip dominant. It hurts. Like I can't do that
it's
sustainably.
like the most natural thing to me.
Yeah, it feels weird to me.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't good. So there's that. Secondly, and I'm kind of just going off like I guess what I think or what I had off the top of my head. Secondly, I would say you don't necessarily need to know like exactly what limb ratios mean for certain movements or anything like that, but in general, and this goes along with like keeping expectations in check
And Chet,
if like, dude, like if you look like a giant stick, like it's probably gonna be pretty hard. Like, I'm sorry, like just realize that going in, like it, like if you have a general understanding of your body type and how you're structured and what that means in this sport.
Right. Because you know what I've noticed? Every male, at least, fitness model, like Ulysses and those Simeon Panda guys, they all have super small torsos, wide kind of clavicle chest, long arms, and it's like, you guys don't have much core support for powerlifting. It would be terrible.
They're not going to be the best powerlifters.
And that's why those guys are never strong. Yep. But they have the look that sells sex well, though.
Yep.
Like, and so it's like, kind of know where you can play.
Right.
You know,
right.
and it's a hard pill to swallow, like you said earlier. Like knowing your.
Yeah, it's not saying don't do it, but it just. I think be aware of reality, I suppose.
I think in a practical takeaway from that, just and it's an example that maybe can be applicable to some people, is if you realize that, you know, every time you've spent, let's say, years and frustrating time periods of deadlifting, and you're constantly rounding and you're caving every time you deadlift, and you see this person has pristine, perfect deadlifts like Mike T's or somebody else's, and you're every couple of months your back goes out or something happens, and you have a problem that's recurring, and you just refuse to believe it because you should be deadlifting and it's good for your back and blah blah blah. Well, that's obviously conditional, but realize that, and this will sound almost in contrast to things I've said before, but again, you live and you learn. Maybe in training, it might be best for you to not pull from the floor.
Yeah.
So, because what you're looking at is you want to now limit your exposure to the stressor. So if you want to compete in powerlifting, no one's saying quit powerlifting. And yes, it has lower specificity to the meet. But if you're talking about longevity, then you might want to limit pulling from the floor, limit it in training, and only do it in the meet.
It's like talking about like those times, like how many times do you get doing that before?
Exactly.
It's the last time.
Before something breaks. Obviously, I'm saying you still need to practice, you know, what the conditions you're going to be expected to perform under. However, the training stimuli far outweigh the meet, or stimuli is wrong word. The times that you're going to do that movement in training far outnumber the times you're going to do it in under a meet. So it's just like people use those, and this is a funny one that I see a lot, is like they use kind of the cherry picking examples of X person pulls with a rounded back and he's a world record holder,
right,
and therefore that means it's correct. Well, number one, they could have a really fucking weird anatomical mutation that just allows it to work. Number two, they're doing it now and getting away with it now when they're in their 20s and 30s.
Yep.
Let's see what happens over time. And then after they're out of sport and out of the spotlight, no one continues to try to use that example because everybody's forgotten about them and the new person has come out. So what do we see commonly in powerlifting? The people who have the great longevity and the long careers in doing it. The Dave Ricks of powerlifting. Why it's not just some kind of strange occasion. Like if you look at Dave move and squat, he is literally made to do it.
Right.
He is so compact. Like I would bet to say that Dave could probably count on one hand how many times his back has given out on him in his life. Yeah. Whereas like someone like Brad Gillingham, who's like literally twice the size in almost every way of Dave, probably has had much more frequent injuries and occurrences of that.
Right.
So yeah, I think part of being honest with yourself as well is accepting your structure internally. We want to say, like, I remember for me, like I wanted to deadlift like Ian Bell. I don't have Ian Bell's structure.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like everybody wants to be at Cone.
Or we'll use the bodybuilding example too. Make me look like this guy.
Right. That is my pet peeve.
Yeah.
Like, this is my goal physique.
Well, let's hacksaw your bone a little bit.
My goal physique is a picture of another human being. That makes no sense.
Yeah. Dude,
you're not them.
Even someone's literal
I want to look like Arnold.
Yeah, can't even get the same attachments.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing too that I think kind of this know thyself thing, now that we're talking about kind of like limbs and limb segmentation, is that you also have to live with your like limb segments. Like, people say, oh my god, man, you have a short torso in your squat. Yeah, I fucking hate how long my shirts are. Like, I have to live with this. Like, sure, I look good on a platform, but like my shirts are like down to my fucking knees. Like, my torso is so short.
To my world.
Yeah, and it's like Ed Cohn. Like, people love Ed Cohn, but like if you actually see him like stand up, like,
it's crazy.
He's got the funkiest.
He looks like a Neanderthal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, it's almost like, I don't know, like an anecdotal like testament to like maybe like humans aren't really meant to be doing this. Like, like if we think the ones that are really good like look abnormal in some way, like
right,
maybe we're not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a classical thing that you see throughout life is you have to give something to get something.
Yeah.
And everything is kind of sacrifice related if you want to do it at a high level. But I think that's an excellent point that you bring up. And I've actually emailed this in response to certain clients, is like, there's kind of a complaint of like, this is hurting. I feel like shit. Like, you have to give something to get something.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel this isn't baseball. Like, you're not playing shortstop and just getting balls hit to you. That's passive. Like, you are constantly putting yourself under load and trying to do something that is biologically expensive in every way for you to do.
Yeah. Our days are pretty much gone.
Interesting
at this point.
In that applied biomechanics book,
they
actually talk about that, like a big difference from us and our kind of ape relatives is that our attachments are much closer to the joint than like say a chimp or something like that, and that is terrible for strength. It gives us a lot more range of motion, but for strength it's awful. Imagine,
it looks cute though.
Imagine if basically the tendons for your elbow flexors were located like way down along your forearm, closer to your wrist.
Boy,
imagine how fast that would go and how strong you would be.
Yeah,
like,
that would be strong.
But they're not. That's not where they are. We evolved to have more range of motion rather than that.
It's funny because that purely is just another example of like you give something to get something.
Yeah.
Like you truly do.
It really is.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have much to add other than I comically think about people saying, "Doc, cut me and just move my tendon down like a couple, like maybe half a foot down my forearm."
It's pretty insane, and that's another kind of genetic thing. Like you're never really gonna know that probably, unless you look really weird.
Or you're just an outlier since the first day you lived.
You're never really gonna know that. Yeah, or unless you're like an outlier. But like a very small difference in that attachment, like
tremendous.
Yeah, yields a tremendous difference exteriorly on your ability to move things. So it's kind of an interesting factoid. But I think what you said about like giving and getting, and like saying like, I feel like I don't feel the greatest. That is another like huge thing with the I guess responsibility of being somebody that is receiving consulting, and that is you kind of have to like know your body. Like you have to know, like, is it time, am I gonna be able to push here or not push here? Like again, that's not to take any responsibility away from the consultant in assigning workload and things like that. But I always tell people, like, if you think something's off, or you think it like this is just wrong, or if you think you're like on the brink of injury, don't do it. But you have to know that balance between that side of things and
or just feeling worn down,
just feeling like you're a little bumped up. So I think that's just something that comes with experience, and another reason why kind of like people who played more, I guess you could say, traditional sports when they were younger tend to do really well.
Because there's carryover, because you know where
you have that awareness just of your body.
I do think a general indicator, though, as I think about it, as you're saying, as you're talking about it, is, are your symptoms general or specific? I do think that's a big separator, because if you can say my left quad tendon is lit up, then that is a sign that something needs to change and it's a problem.
That's
if you say I generally feel fatigued and like just general lethargy, then it's most likely secondary to just your programming. It's just like if I said tomorrow you have to go run sprints every hour on the hour. You're definitely good. Like by the end of that week, you're gonna feel like shit.
You're gonna need your lemon juice.
Oh man.
So yeah, I do think that's a major separator. Is if you can specifically say just one spot is a problem, then you know that it's not just due to general programming or general process of adaptation.
I almost hear like a good way to come back with Coach-a-bility, to come back to how and when do I learn these fundamentals. It's it almost sounds like in an odd way, you learn best from mistakes. It's like, why do I need to learn more about physics? well, I've been fucking up lately, so I think I should go learn more. Like, why do I need to learn more about like all these things? And it's like I've been messing up more because like I kind of put like had a final point I wrote down. So speaking of like coachability, I kind of said like physics or any fundamental science, and as you make more mistakes, those fundamentals of knowledge need to increase. Tying that into movement like we talked about, and then like a final point I had was like the how. Like I really think programming should be the last thing you talk about, and oftentimes like people don't have any of these things down, and they just want to talk about programming, and that's why we even have a hard time talking about programming sometimes, because there's so many variables.
People are excited to get stronger,
dude. I know
they skip the fundamental part.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like with us, like I know all of us. I know I do at least, and I know from Ben, like we ask an absurd amount of questions before someone starts with us. And I want to see how you lift. I want to see videos, and I kind of want you to test before you start with me, just to see where you're at. Because I don't even ask people what their numbers are anymore. I'm like, no, you actually test. Like you're not gonna tell me the truth, you know. So that, and as much background information as you can, and I like to see where their education's at. You know, when it's just to think that people say, all right, I'm gonna do DUP 3 times a week, the DUP the 3 times a week, and hope, and you know, and you got the wrong squat shoes on, you know what I mean, and it's like and you're just knee bombing down a pair of Nike Romoleos.
X world lifter said to wear them, you know what I mean? That's poor decision. I think that's an excellent point. And I'm going to defer to Jake because I need some more thinking time on it.
Which point?
I was saying programming is like the last step in all of this coachability.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess weirdly you could like almost include it like as I can't think of the word. A preface to program.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking. Like a preface, not even to programming, but a preface to the how.
Yeah.
Like I think this week we all discovered in the house, we were like talking about me and my lifts. They're like, we all realize I'm an intermediate still, and I was like, yep. I'm not advanced yet, you know.
This was actually something I saw. Actually, I think Greg Knuckles posted this on like Facebook, but I liked it. I think he was just saying like the first like thing about programming that I guess should like really be addressed is like what do your reps look like? Like are you having like good consistent like quality like repetitions of that movement? Like what are you like? I think again like what does the movement look like? And it's just in the era of online coaching, it's tough. It gets looked over sometimes.
And then what does the movement look like? That's prefaced by, well, what do you know at base? Like, right. Do you know how this bar will move? Do you know about center of mat? Like, do you know these things? So, again, I can kind of go over our short list again of kind of.
And if that's not what you said, then I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, that was it. So, speaking of coachability. Even self-coachability or coachability from another person. We said physics to start this one as an example, but really any fundamental thing to do with lifting, in terms of how it works, how life even works. I need to decline this phone call. Movement is life, kind of our overarching title for that. And then of all those things, the how, like how to do, like what do I do with this now? And as you're doing something with that now, you'll probably realize, something's missing here. What am I missing? Oh, I'm not good with torque or something. Then you go back and even learn what it is.
It's okay, so it's as oh man, I ripped that thing. As we were talking about in the beginning, it's like progress is like a circle kind of. So it's like you just keep gliding around, and it's like you're in orbit, and like with each pass you're getting more and more practice, but maybe like the Earth isn't the same Earth every time it goes around the sun and reaches that same point.
Absolutely.
So it's like every time you come back to that point of practice, you need to kind of like alternate or like revolve around into
it's a little different
like,
every year.
Yeah, to like part like, okay, practice and like acquire general knowledge, whatever practice, learn, and just...
I think that's hard to accept, man. This is in our society, period, though. Like, I think it's hard to, because I think we're so used to the institutional kind of...
Go.
Yeah. Congratulations, you finished 3rd grade and you're never going back. Like, you never can go back and learn about 3rd grade math. You know what I mean? Like, you're done.
Yeah.
And I think people
or you should be ashamed if you have to go touch up on it.
Dude, like, I was looking at Khan Academy. I started at how to read a clock. Maybe I don't know something here.
Yeah.
Like maybe I've been doing this thing wrong. Like, and I honestly don't even know how to read a clock still. Like, I don't. So there you go. You got that on me.
Well, I think the only thing that I'd really have to say on that, and it was the lingering thought that I didn't have after you talked about kind of programming being the last part, the base of the pyramid, or really the apex of the pyramid that to concern yourself with. If you look at somebody high level, even intermediate level, who has lifted weights and comes to you, the easiest way to have a large degree of change in their performance is to actually fix the way they move.
Right.
And if you see actually, like a lot of people talk about, I put X amount on my total, I put X amount on my lifts in this block, especially if you first started with somebody who has helped you move better, you're not just seeing an actual true increase in maximal strength. You're seeing the combination of an increase in efficiency as well as increase in maximal strength. So in other words, an increased ability to display your true strength.
Right.
And I think this is really just a plea for high level lifters, or people who are nearing high level lifter status, to don't keep looking for the quick fix or the best programmer, or the best program to use. Look for ways you can clean up things you're already doing without even needing to, because the one thing that I realize now in retrospect of stuff that I think where I have the most content, especially with Dr. Zordos out there on, is on programming, on volume, on frequency. But realize that as you increase the frequency, the volume, with poor repetition, you're cutting out your lifespan in this more and more. Whereas that might actually be not be a necessity at this point. You might actually become a better lifter by, as you said, not focusing on programming right now.
Right.
Like focusing on just cleaning up everything else.
And that's kind of how our topic started, and that's kind of the reason why we're structuring our camps that we'll be doing at least on technique, because it's the way I think about efficiency in your technique, and like you said, kind of a plea for high level lifters. It's like, okay, if you were to run a business, or even like your personal money, let's do in something that like something fiscal and easy, tangible to understand. If you were low on money, would you work more hours to make more money? Or would you say, I'm going to work the same hours, but I'm going to actually spend less? And then you'll see, like, holy shit, like, I've been only eating half of my food and throwing it away. Like you'll start to, like, efficiency is like saving money in a way. Like, you don't have to put more output. Like, your yield will be higher. Now you'll work the same hours, getting more. So you haven't changed anything except your ego. And that's all you had to change was your ego. You didn't have to add any more hours into it. And that's kind of what programming is. It's literally hours. It's life hours and time and effort that you have to put out. So for me, I think the biggest bang for your buck is becoming as efficient as you can in your lift by understanding those fundamentals that we talked about in the very beginning, understanding your movements and then finessing that to you, and then say, okay, with these, well, it sounds biblical, with these things I program. Wow, I like how that sounds. So yeah, that's what it was. That was pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything else.
You want to give us a sign-off song that you were singing earlier? You guys, I just lie at the end of every podcast just to see Jake's face. There was no sign-off song.
I think what do I usually do? Stare blankly back at you.
Want to give us a sign-off?
Toodle-doodle-doo, we'll have another podcast for you.
All right, thank you guys. We will see many of you at the Arnold. For those who are coming to our camp, thank you. You will get every dollar's worth. I will say that publicly and boldly. Sorry. All right, bye.